What's up, everybody? My name's Paul Robinson with Creative Congo, and hey, welcome to the jungle, So recently I came across a couple new techniques I wanted to go ahead and share with everybody, working with Element specifically. I had to figure out a way to shatter something, both text and just a flat element, like a piece of glass or something like that. And I also had to be able to make it something that I can update. So if I wanted to change this word from fact to opinion, or from opinion to Creative Congo, and if I wanted to change the shape of this, all relatively quick and keeping everything the same in terms of what texture I have on the glass element here and everything. So let's go ahead and get started creating this bad boy. So I started off in Illustrator, and I did this because I came across this tutorial by a gentleman named Kuba Kozina, and I'm sure I'm completely murdering that name, at AE Tuts. And oh look, Element 3D, that's what we're using. Huh. They know. They're watching. Big Brother is watching. So I came across this tutorial, and the technique he uses in order to drive extrusions from masks that he built was something that I could utilize to create what I wanted to create and make it something that I can swap out nice and easy. So props to him for having that tutorial out there that I could utilize and learn from and expand on. So we'll start off in Illustrator here. We'll create a new document, File, New. And whatever size comp I'm working with is like the same size that I like to work with inside of Illustrator. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm doing 960 by 540. So we're going to go ahead and set this comp up at 960 by 540 as well. So let's click OK. And inside here, we're going to go ahead and create our piece of glass that we're going to shatter. So we can just grab the pen tool and just start clicking around. Any shape you want. For me, I just kind of wanted this random glass kind of, shattered piece here, and then we'll close it off there. And in order to break this apart, it's very simple. We come over to our eraser tool, and if you hold down, you click and hold, you'll get a flyout menu. Come down to the knife tool, and what you can do is just click and drag all the way through and just start slicing it apart. You want to make sure not go all the way through like that, because Element is going to just bevel that and it won't break it apart, kind of mess everything up. So you want to make sure that you go all the way through from one end to the other. And I don't know if that one went all the way through, so let's just make sure. Break off this tip here, maybe this side over here, here, maybe one more through there. There, that looks good. That looks good. And then now we want to create our text, so we'll File, New, 960 by 540 again, and we'll come over to the text tool, click in here, and we'll write something creative. Congo. All right, go back to our selection tool, and we'll scale this up. And if you hold Shift, it'll constrain the proportions, so it scales up with the correct proportions. And then you want to go ahead and select, whatever text you want to use. I'm digging Blanche, so we'll use that. And in order to cut this up, we need to create outlines. So if we right-click, create outlines right in the menu there. We'll come over to our direct selection tool and we'll select just Congo because I want to move it around. And you can use the arrow keys, move it around. If you hold it on Shift, you can move it 10 pixels at a time as opposed to 1. Come back to our regular selection tool and it'll highlight it so we can then scale it up to be the same size as Creative. So there we go. Now we highlight everything. We come back over to our knife tool and then we just start cutting it apart. Boom. Slice, slice, slice. And again, same with the same idea as the glass piece. You can break this apart in as many or as few pieces as you want. You could have it break apart in 2 pieces or, a million little pieces, anything you'd like. But let's just get this cut up here. And, Control Z to undo that because I didn't cut all the way through, which can be a nightmare, as I explained already. We're almost done here. Let's just cut up this C. Just find interesting ways to cut it up. this little edge there. It's kind of cool. And let's see, this G here. I don't like that. All right, that's good. That'll work. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. So now we have our text and we have our glass set up. So if we come back over to After Effects, create a new comp. We'll call this one render, because it'll be the one that I would render. I came up with that all by myself. So now we're going to go ahead and create a bunch of solids that's going to hold everything. So first, the shortcut is Command Y. So the first solid is going to be our piece of glass. Command Y again. Our next one's going to be our text. Command Y again. This one will be our texture. That's going to go on to the piece of glass that we're breaking. And the final one here is the element 3D layer. Bang. So first things first, we'll go back into our Illustrator file and we'll highlight everything. And then we'll hit Command or Control C, come back over to After Effects, come to our glass layer, Command or Control V. And as you can see, all of those outlines and slices we made are coming in as masks. And we're going to use these masks to drive the extrusions. Then we'll come back to Illustrator, we'll go over to our text, highlight all the text, Command or Control C, come back to After Effects, highlight the text layer, Command and Control V. Again, it brought in all those paths as masks. And then while we're here, we'll go ahead and set up our texture. So we want to pre-comp this texture, and the shortcut for that is Command-Shift-C. And then we'll just leave all attributes, move them, it doesn't matter. We don't have any attributes yet. And then we'll double click into here, and then we'll go ahead and bring in have this the Creative Congo title animation. We'll go ahead and bring that in, drop that on there. And we'll scale it down by 50% because I know it's full HD. And then I don't want it to disappear when it ends, so we'll right click on this, we'll go to time, enable time remapping, and then just extend out that last frame all the way across. So that way it just, and then we can just delete this texture layer. And then to close any window, any of these windows, you hit Command W, and it'll just close that window for you. And now we'll set up element. So we'll go into select the element 3D solid, and we'll right click in our effects control panel, go down to Video Copilot, element, and we'll actually hide these layers because we don't need to see them. We just need to reference them, which we'll do right now. Actually, so we'll go to custom layers, and we'll go to custom text and masks. And for the path layer 1, we'll go ahead and put the text in there. Path layer 2, we'll put our glass in there. We'll come on to our custom texture maps, and we'll put our texture in there. So now everything's set up to drive the elements. So let's go into element, scene setup. And inside here, if you click extrude, if you have anything in your custom path, it's going to automatically go ahead and extrude that, whatever's on the first path. But we see we have a little spiking, so we can go to our spike filter here and just bring that up until it's gone. Looks good. No spiking. And I wanted to have all of the cracks to be really noticeable. So I wanted to have a little bit of a bevel on all of them. So I went into the bevels and I selected this Pro Black one because it's very simple and it's got just a very basic bevel, but it's a little strong. So let's go into the bevel scale and bring it down to say 0.4. So now it's nice and thin, just like I wanted. So we'll double click on this extrusion model and we'll call this text just to keep organized. And now we'll go to the materials and we'll lay some materials on this. You can literally use any material you want. Metal one, you can make your own. You can use any basic one you want. For me, I wanted to go ahead and use this frosty material, which I really liked. And then for the edging, I wanted to use this glass material. Boom. So in order to set this up so that way we can break it apart into all those little pieces that we set up in the mask, you need to go to the separation mode and change that to by geometry, and then come down to the tessellation and turn off auto path orientation. And that'll set it up so that way later on when you're using your multi-object, you're enabling multi-object, when you move everything around, it breaks apart. So that's kind of the big whole secret to it all. There you go. So now we'll go ahead and we'll duplicate this because we want to make our piece of glass. So we'll duplicate this model, we'll put it on channel 2, we'll double click this and we'll call this glass. And then we make sure this is highlighted. We'll come down to custom path 2, select custom path 2. There we go. Boom. And all of the settings carry over, by geometry and turning off the auto path orientation. But I want to go ahead and let's set our materials on this. So I know I want to use this glass material because I like the way that it reflects. And then for the edging, we'll set up the frosty. It's basically the reverse of that, essentially. But it's a little thick for me. So what I want to do is I want to come into this extrusion and we'll do, say, 0.4. And then for the edging, we'll do like 0.44. It always got to be a little bit, just a little bit longer. So that way you make sure you can see it on the edge there. So let's add our custom texture on here. So if we come into if we make sure that this glass cracks material is highlighted, which is what this is, and then we go into our diffuse channel, click on that, we'll get a dialog box so we can set up our texture channel. And if you click here, you can either load a file, or if you have it set up already in the comp, which is what we want to do because we want to have an animation play out in there. And so we'll select that. Boom, Creative Congo. And as you can see, it's tiled all funky and everything, so we can go ahead and we can fix that if we make sure we select the glass layer there, and we'll choose box. We don't need to, so. And then we'll just go ahead and scale this up. So that way there's just one on here. And then just using the offset and the repeat, you can expand this out. So that way, so you can see a little better there. We'll scale this up, move it. That ought to be good. You can see it repeats a little bit over there. So let's slide this over. And that looks good. And I don't like the way this is reflecting on here. This is very, very strong. And I wanted to kind of be a little more subtle and contrasty. So let's go set up our environment. I think the underpass has 2 nice bright spots and the rest is pretty dark. So you kind of see you get a much more contrasty reflection, which I like. And we can kind of see that the sides are repeating here. So in order to fix that, we make sure this is highlighted. We come down to our texture mapping and choose the plane texture mapping. And then we'll just kind of have to realign everything here. There we go. Perfect. Looks good. I'm happy with that. And we'll go into the text. We'll check the text before we exit out of here. I'm happy with the way that this is reflecting and working. That's great. So let's click OK. Here we are. So first thing I want to do is we'll add a camera. So new camera, and just to make it interesting, we'll add keep the 24mm camera. Anytime I make a camera, I like to make a null object to control that camera with. So we'll title this, and if you ever want to rename something, if it's highlighted, just select Enter. We'll make this 3D. Click the position to make sure that that is exactly the same. So -640, and then we'll go ahead and parent the camera to the camera operator null. And then so we'll set up this scene here. So we'll come into an element, and first we'll scale up our piece of glass, which is in group 2. So come to particle look, and we'll change the particle size. We'll scale that up to about EA big. That's the official term for that size. It's EA. And then we'll come into the text, and we'll scale that up a little bit as well. Not too much, just a little bit. And the scene's looking a little drab, as you can tell. So we'll go ahead and we'll add some lights. So add a new light. I like to use a parallel light. And this is all personal preference. I want to kind of have like a nice little hot spot in the top corner there. So you can see these edges really reflect, which is, I like that a lot. So kind of what I was going for. And so we'll go into Element 3D, and we'll go into our render settings and in the environment. We're going to rotate this environment till we get a look that we're happy with. So let's, I like that little spot there. Let's rotate it a little bit. On a hot spot right there on the left side, just peeking in like that. It's great. And you can add other lights, you know, as many lights or as few lights as you'd like to kind of get the look that you're going for. I'm happy with this look here, so we'll just keep that. You can see these cracks really kind of pop with this light, but I want to bring down the intensity of this light. If you select the light and hold T for intensity, bring this down just a little bit, or we can bring it up a little bit. You know what? Maybe let's go up a little bit. I like that. Cool. Let's come into element here, and let's find the spot where the animations. You can see now the animation is playing, and we got a little bit of a tiling issue. So let's fix that real quick. We'll go back into element, select our glass layer, and let's fix this. Expand it, move it up. Make sure that goes all the way to the end. All right. Boom. Creative Congo. All right, so now we want this thing to hit right when this animation comes here. Boom, that's right where we want it to hit. So right about there. So what we're going to do is we'll go into element here. We'll set a keyframe for group 2, which is our text. On our position Z or position X and Y. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the left side here so we can make sure that this text is lined up right with the, right where it would hit. Boom, boom, perfect. We'll go back to camera 1, camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2. Anyone? No? Okay, great. So that's right where it's going to hit. If we select the element 3 layer, hit U is the keyboard shortcut to reveal all the keyframes. We'll go back, say, maybe 10 frames. We hold Shift and page up. We'll go back 10 frames, and then we'll bring this out. And we don't want to go through the end right there, so we'll go ahead and move this up so it's coming through the end there. And then what we're going to do is we'll give us a little room, we'll expand this out. We'll highlight these keyframes and right click and we'll put an easy ease on them. And the reason I'm doing this is because it just gives the impact a little more, it starts off slow and then slams right into it, so it makes it more impactful. Okay, so let's give this a quick RAM preview and see how that is. Coming in, and bang. So let's see in real time how that all looks. It's pretty good. So let's get a camera move on here, shall we? So now we have the camera up, but I want to rotate around and keep this in the center. So what we can do is if we create a new null object, we make that 3D, bring it down here, we'll make this 3D, we'll call it, and it's the center of our scene, so we'll call this center null. It's a stretch, I know. And then we'll go ahead and parent the camera operator null to the center null, so that way if we rotate this, we're rotating around the center here. So let's go to our impact point, which is where we want the rotation to end, and the X and Y rotation, we'll set a keyframe of those. If we hit home, we'll go to the beginning of the animation, and we'll just say we'll start there and move it over here. Something a little interesting. And then we'll highlight these two keyframes, right click, go to keyframe assistance, easy ease, and as I always like to do, to go into the graph editor and just we'll set that ease so it's a little more abrupt, right? So it eases in and slam. Bang. Okay. So I don't like this dark background, so we'll go ahead up and we'll start a new solid. We'll make it white, doesn't really matter, we'll call this BG. And then we're going to apply a ramp to it, so on generate ramp, we want a radial ramp, we want it to be right in the middle, so that's 480 by 270. And then this is going to be almost pure white, not quite, I want it to be a little bit gray. And this is all personal preference, it can be, do whatever you want with that. And there you go, and then we're going to expand that out and then scatter the ramp just so we don't run into any banding issues later on. So now that that's set up, we'll put that underneath everything so we have it's a little bit lighter and brighter. I like the way that that looks. So now for the fun part, let's break crap. Let's do this. So now let's go to the point in time where it hits, which is right here. Go to our element 3D layer, and we'll start with group 1, which is our text layer. If we come down to particle look and we go to multi-object and enable multi-object, boom. And as you can see, as we start to rotate, everything breaks apart, which is fabulous, exactly what we wanted. So we can keyframe this. So what we'll do is we'll set a keyframe for the rotation random. We'll set a keyframe for the X and Y displacement, which just brings it apart like that. We'll also set a keyframe for scatter, which does that. So for scatter X and Y, and we'll set the same up for, we can close this, we'll set the same up for group 2, which is our glass. We will go to multi-object, enable multi-object, and our random rotation, which will break everything apart like so. X and Y displacement, which will break everything apart like so, and our scatter, which will break everything apart like so. So let's highlight once you enable multi-object, it opens it up in the bottom. So if we hit U and U again, it'll just show us all of our keyframes. And when this thing hits, I want it to kind of break apart real quick and then just kind of slowly float away. Float away from me, float away. So we'll go ahead, say 10 keyframes. We'll hold Shift and page down. And then we'll set up our initial impact. So we're going to have this break a little bit here. It'll displace a very little. Displace can kind of start to look like it's growing, and we don't want that. So we want to be very liberal with our breaking. So we'll do 0.05, maybe even 0.04. And the scattering, we can go a little bit more with 0.1. Same with this, we'll have this break apart. Displace a little bit. We'll do 0.03 with these, so it's a little bit less. And this is all personal taste. And then we'll set our comp. We'll go into comp settings and we'll set it to 6 seconds because 33 is a bit long. And then if you hit end, it'll bring it to the end of your comp. And then we can continue this how you want it to expand out after the initial impact. And you just want to keep that movement going. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. It's all personal taste, obviously. So we'll set that up, and let's give this a quick RAM preview and see what we got and how it's coming out. So it's coming, boom, and everything breaks, and then it just kind of floats. So let's see in real time. Come across. I feel like the impact takes a little too long, so maybe it should only be maybe 5 frames. Yeah, that's definitely too long. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll move all these keyframes down 5 frames. And we'll see what that looks like. Do a RAM preview. Come across and bang. Much better. So we have the impact. Everything breaks and then it just kind of floats away. I think it could be a little more. It's a little bit subtle still, especially with the glass. So we'll displace that up a bit and across. And we'll see what that looks like. Just want it to kind of look like it's floating away, and that already looks a little bit better. But let's check it out in real time. Comes in, bang, just floating away, much better. Okay, I'm happy with that. So next thing is, and that's pretty much the idea. I mean, we can stop right there, and if you wanted to have something slam in and break, there you go, you've done it. So you can stop watching, but I don't suggest you do that. So what's great about this is the video's still playing, and it'll continue to play in all the pieces. And one of the as I said in the beginning, one of the major aspects of this is I want to be able to change this text out. So let's say you did this for a client and they're like, what the hell is Creative Congo? We don't give a crap about Creative Congo. We want it to be something else, or we want the text to be a different font or whatever. So we can go back into Illustrator, right? We'll make a new document, 960 by 540. And if we take the text tool and when we write not Creative Congo, right? Because he doesn't want Creative Congo, so we'll give him not Creative Congo. Scale that up. We'll pick our font, and we'll highlight it all, right click, create outlines, and select just this, and we'll move it up. Back to our selection tool, we'll scale this up. And the idea is that you kind of want to try to match this size as much as possible, how it's framed. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, the more it's aligned, the better. That's fine. So then we would go through and we would cut this up as well. Make sure everything's highlighted, come through, cut this up, and just for the sake of time, we'll do this real quick. Sound effects help whenever you're working on anything. And then we'll cut up this G, we'll come to this N. We have some cuts here. Just slide across, boom. And then what you can do is we'll highlight all of this. We'll highlight not creative, hit Command or Control C, come back to After Effects, we'll take our text layer, we'll hit M to reveal all the masks. We select one mask, hit Command A to highlight them all, then we hit Delete. Then we make sure it's still highlighted, we hit Command V. And that's going to paste in the new text. All right, and as you can see, if we scrub through, boom, the text is updated to not Creative Congo. So quick RAM preview of that. Comes in, whoosh, it breaks. Not Creative Congo. And you could do that with this. You can, you know, redo the shape and have different slices, different shapes. You can drop, you know, you can go into this texture here and build your own animation, or you know, anything like that. Command W. So that's pretty much it. Everything else is just kind of to make it look nice. You know, we went into the camera AA and we turned on depth of field. Actually, before we do that, you know, I basically built a particle field, and so what I did was, if you go to All Bets Are Off, right, Aaron Rabinowitz's website, he's got free Shatter object presets for Element 3D. And so basically there's shapes, there's squares, circles, cones, you know, pyramids, whatever, that are pre-fractured. And he shows you how to install them and use them, and he also shows you how to make them and how he made them, which is a great asset. And best of all, it's free. All right, so head on over to that site and grab those. It's an amazing utility. Actually, the whole site is. So what I did was I came in here, close these down, and once you install, you'll have a AOB, All Bets Are Off Shatter Objects folder. So I picked one of the cubes. Let's go with 200. Zoom out here, and I put it on channel 3 here. And I just used, you know, materials from the scene. So on the outside, I wanted to have this material. On the inside, we'll go with this frosty material here. And let's set this up to box. And we'll scale it down a little bit. You know, maybe to 1.5, 1.5. Just so it looks a little bit nicer. Perfect. And then what we can do is, if we go into group 3, go to particle look, you know the procedure, enable multi-objects, and then if we displace this, and then we push it back in the space here, particle, and then we can go through the animation and just get it set up however you want. I want this to be a little bit bigger, so we will expand this out a bunch. So we'll go 20 by 20, just to make it nice and big. So there's a nice big field here. And one of the other things I did was I wanted to have it, all the pieces kind of rotate in space. So what I did was, if we go into multi-object in the random rotation here, it's kind of cut off, but the random rotation, random multi, and if you hit Option and then click the stopwatch and then just put in the simple expression time times, let's say 100, And then what that'll do is that every frame it's going to continue to drive it. So as you can see, they're spinning. So let's give us a little bit more room here, and then we'll do a quick RAM preview. Come across, bang! Not Creative Congo. And it's that simple. And then you can make a second set and scale them down and scale them wide. It's kind of what I did, just to add a whole bunch of different sizes. You can create your own sizes and extrude them. You do a whole bunch of stuff. A couple other stuff I did just real quick was, and then we'll wrap this up, is I created a new solid, and I made this the particles that exploded once Creative Congo hit. So I used Trapcode Particular, but you can use the built-in particle generator that After Effects has. And I wanted it to start here. So if this layer is highlighted, you just hit open bracket, and that'll jump the beginning of that particular layer to wherever your CTI is, and then boom, like that. So I want it to explode out. So into the emitter I went into I want it to be in a disc shape. I kind of wanted it to explode out in a disc shape. Boom. And I also wanted it to be a box and not a point, because I wanted it to come from all of where the text was. So if we turn the velocity to 0, we can see how big the box is, and then we can just scale that up with the emitter size. Boom, we can turn our velocity back up to, say, 700. Not 7,000, but 700. And then I wanted to kind of, same idea, explode out real quick and then just kind of float away. So if we go into our physics down here, into air, and then turn up our air resistance to, let's say, 5. So it explodes out and then slows down. And we obviously don't want it to be continually emitting particles, so we'll set this to maybe 3000. Set a keyframe here, move ahead 2 frames, and then we'll turn it down to 0. And then we'll just use the spacebar to quickly see what that looks like. Boom. So that's kind of the idea. And you can tweak that to make it look a lot nicer. You know, you can change the particle to match a nice bright area of here. Maybe something a little bit darker, like there. Change the size down to, say, 2, half the size of that. See what that looks like. You know, and I used custom particles that you can create. Instead of sphere, you just select sprite, and then you select your custom particles, and you can animate those particles. So that's what I did. And the one last thing I did was, let's see. So I went into camera. I wanted to have a nice little shake when it hit. So I select position, go ahead 10 frames, keyframe position again. And I used the wiggler, which I don't see up, but it is up somewhere. Here it is, wiggler. And I highlighted both these keyframes. And the frequency, let's say it was 20, and the magnitude, I want it to be pretty intense, so we'll say 30. And then we'll click apply. And then let's just give this a quick RAM preview to see how it hits. It's pretty good. There's a quick jump at the end, which I don't like, which I believe is this keyframe. So let's just delete that one. Now, particles break apart. So let's just give the whole thing, come across, and bang. Bang. All right, looking good. And so we'll go ahead and we'll enable, if we select the camera and hit AA, we'll bring up some of the camera options. So we want to enable depth of field, turn the aperture to, say, like 50. So you can see a lot of the elements in the background are out of focus. And then for the particles, just bring that down above here. We'll enable the motion blur for the particles in the element 3D layer, and then apply it for the whole comp, so that when the text zooms in and hits and shakes, we get some motion blur, which adds a lot to it. And one final thing I did, I know I said final before, but I lied. So I had, like, on the original example, I have like a little bit of a fringe around the edge here of like an RGB split. So let's go ahead and recreate that. So a new adjustment layer, and then we'll call this RGB split. And then I applied a Twitch plugin to that, which you can get at Video Copilot, where you get pretty much everything you ever have, and we'll enable slide. Boom. And then so we'll go into the slide here, and you get an option for slide RGB split, which gives you that RGB split. And then you can just kind of dial it in to whatever you want. I think that's kind of cool. A little bit more. There we go. So then what we can do is this is just going to keep twitching, but we want to freeze frame this, but you can't freeze frame this. You can't freeze frame an effect, right? So what you have to do is pre-compose this. So Command Shift C will pre-compose this, but we want to make sure that we move all the attributes because we want the twitch to go inside of this comp. So that way we can freeze frame it. Click OK. And take a second. And as you can see, the effect went away. But if you select this collapse transformation switch, it comes back because then it's letting the attributes of the pre-comp come through. And if you want any more information on how the collapse transformation works, if you head on over to Creative Congo into the tutorials, our Mr. Jesse Cervantes has a great tutorial on continuous rasterization for collapse transformation, which goes into that a little more in depth. So now we can come in here and grab the ellipse tool, go inside to the RGB split comp, and then we just will set this up, and then you can just kind of tweak this. I know I'm going to want to have it feathered, maybe 100 pixels, and then we'll actually set this to subtract. And then as you can see, it just adds a nice little fringe here, and then you can just, manipulate it however, big or small you want that to kind of be. And then we want to make sure we find a good place where we really like what that looks like right here. And then right click on this, come up to time, freeze frame. And that'll freeze that effect so it carries out through the whole entire thing, just on that one specific layer. So let's hit RAM preview and see what it looks like. Okay, we come around, animation, have a bang. And that's basically it. And again, you can change this text by just going in and changing the text that you want in here. You can change the shape of this, you can change how it breaks, all of the breaks, and if you're changing this, the texture and all that stuff's going to stay the same. It's going to be, continue to be there. So if you wanted to build a couple of these series, you can. And I'm going to go ahead and make this project file, well, make the original project file downloadable, so you can go in and tear it apart and see what you like, or use it and put your own stuff in there and change it out. If you guys have any further questions regarding this, go ahead and shoot me a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I know it's a really long tutorial, so thanks for sticking it out. I appreciate it. Look forward to having you listen to me ramble on in my next tutorial. All right, guys, have a good one.